3-4 years ago, I was like, psh, like, what are you talking about? Like, setting goals, like, that sounds boring. Auditing, like, trying to see myself more objectively, like that just doesn't sound like it's creative. What is that, one or two things that we really, really want to put our attention and energy and effort into? Trust that the answers will come up, because honestly, they do. Don't be discouraged if you are confused. Don't be discouraged if you feel like you're not up to the level of understanding that you want to have. I was doing the day-to-day stuff, but I wasn't sure because I didn't sit down to reflect enough on why I was doing what I was doing. Hello and welcome to another episode of Teaside Thursdays with your artist friend, Win. And let me share with you what I'm drinking today. So I have this little remaining packet of ceremonial grade matcha, just pure matcha without any other flavorings by Perfect Ted. So I'll put a little picture up so you can actually see what it looks like. So today we're basically like spending some cozy time in the corner of my studio again, because today I'm feeling quite, I don't know, I just want to be cozy today. And I thought that, this coziness is actually the perfect way to start our brand new year. And before we move on to our topic of this week, let me wish you a happy new year, happy 2026. I can't believe that I'm actually saying this to you right now, because as I'm recording now, it's still 2025. But it's going to be 2026 in literally, let me see. So I'm recording it in 15th of December. So it's literally only just over 2 weeks away before 2026 arrives. Like, how crazy is that? For me, every year that goes past feels very crazy to me, especially as I get older. I feel like I get wrapped up in sometimes like so much of the day-to-day stuff that I have to purposely remind myself to stop and, watch the clouds go by, observe the trees in the wind, and going out for a walk, not to feel like it's a utilitarian thing, but actually something that can actually connect me to my wider environment. Because I also spend so much time, in my studio, so much time on my laptop and with the camera even. It's like an electrical equipment. And I realized how it's so easy to get disconnected with ourselves, but also with the environment around us. And for me, definitely sort of something that signals that I'm a little bit not with it, like not with the entire world around me, is when I'm sort of in my own world and so focused on doing this one task and then focusing on the next task, that it just becomes so repetitive, and I stop to notice the changes in the sky and moments of sunrise and sunset, which are really precious to me. I guess that's how I'm starting the year with this conversation. To be honest, that isn't what we're here to talk about today, but as it came out of me right now, I realize that maybe this is also like one of the most important messages for me, and maybe even for you too, that no matter, the goals and resolutions and sort of expectations that you've set for yourself this year, which are all going to be valid and which are all going to be good stuff, you also, like we also are able to appreciate the present moment and appreciate the good things that we have, how privileged we are in a lot of ways to be able to live the lives that we're living. With everything that I'm about to say now, I hope that that sort of energy is something that we can all like carry forward with us in our day-to-day lives. And I will also, try to create these sort of, I don't know, just moments of quietude and moments of reflection and moments of rest and peace, hopefully in the art vlogs that I do, where I share my paintings and also, where I share my reflections, because that's ultimately like what they're there for. It's to obviously like share the work, and share my thoughts as I'm making it, share my thoughts about it and what's happening. But also, I really want these art vlogs to be the kind of videos where you're not just tuning in to watch a painting unfold, but you're actually sort of getting that moment, whether it be 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes of rest and peace and calmness as well. Yeah. Anyway, let me have a little drink. Ooh, I haven't mixed this properly. Sorry, that might have been a bit gross. The last time I drank this on a Teaside Thursday episode, I think I shared that, or it might have been an art vlog. I think I shared that my electric whisk has basically broken, so I haven't replaced that yet. So I literally sort of whisked this matcha into the cup with a spoon and sort of, like frantically mushed it and swirled it around, which doesn't make for the best cup of matcha, but it's bringing the vibes of coziness, which was what I was after. So it's gonna do the job anyway. I just have to be mindful of the floating blobs of little matcha that are not very well mushed at all. So, with it being the first day of New Year and sort of, coming into this new year, I suspect that many of us will be thinking about New Year resolutions, New Year goals and plans, our objectives, very sort of goal centric, very energetic, and very alive in that sense of this is a brand new year. It's a chance to try again. And ironically, I'm sat next to my latest painting that I'm working on, which is named Try Again, because I really wanted to remind myself of the fact that whatever may have happened to us in recently or in the past, we always have the opportunity to try again, despite us not being able to maybe sort of fulfill the promises we've kept for ourselves. For whatever reason, we have the opportunity to try again, and we have the opportunity to give ourselves the grace that we may have taken the wrong turn, we may have had a different mindset that didn't help us. We might have not been able to be, good for ourselves. We might not have been able to take care of our mental or physical health properly and have led to some consequences. Whatever the case may be, we always have the opportunity to try again. And I mentioned it in the art vlog, and I will expand more about this particular topic in the art vlog, but there's something so beautiful to me about that. And I guess that's what's also really great about the turning of a new year, is that sort of calendar change And also that kind of seasonal change too, especially in this Western hemisphere where you're really like going into the depths of winter. But if you're in the Southern hemisphere, you're, I guess, like going into summer. I'm not very familiar with weather patterns, but I think that's how it works. So I think that, in countries like Australia, our winter time here in England is like summertime in Australia. So, like this change in season, whatever season it may be, for me, it's almost similar to like this change in the calendar year, or for me, it's also very similar to a change in our birthdays. For me, it's also signified by even like the time of our birthdays. These sort of days and dates, they may just be days and dates, but they're symbolic of, I think, for me, like this energy of try again, but not in a very, masculine way where it's like, get up and you can do it and try again and never give up and keep pushing, which I think are all very valid mindsets and positive sort of thinking to have. But sometimes not everyone, including myself, like work in that way. Like I'm not driven so much a lot of the times by this sort of masculine sort of push to do things. Like I need a balance of rest and contemplation and reflection, as much as there is this other side that is also sort of, driving the sort of tasks that I do. And I think for me, like this phrase, try again, that has a lot of like grace and forgiveness. For me personally, like that's how I'm feeling right now. This in this new year is, sometimes it can suck sometimes, especially if you feel like you haven't fulfilled like this particular goal that you had. And especially if it might have also been down to something that you sort of could have done better in. But that sort of thing also gives us the opportunity to try again, forgive ourselves, and be really like sort of kind to ourselves, and sort of have that, like talk to be like, okay, like, yes, there are things that you did well, there are things that you didn't do so well. Yes, you could have managed that better. Yes, maybe you could have approached certain thing in this way, but at the same time, you were doing the best that you could in that time. And that was good. That was good enough. I think I mentioned it in a previous podcast, but for me, like, I really related to also like the teachings that I've sort of learned from my mom, which is, we as Buddhists, we pray and we do these like promise prayers. So what a promise prayer is you basically sit at the altar in front of the Buddha, and you basically say, I, when I'm going to do this prayer. So you could use prayer beads, you could say verbally like some prayers, and you basically promise to the Buddha that you are going to do these sets of prayers for X amount of days. So sometimes you could even do it for like a month straight. But I've been told that it's actually good to do like, like short kind of spurts. So you do like a promise prayer where you promise Buddha to pray consecutively for 3 days straight in a week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, say for example. And then, so on the first day that you do it, you basically state that you are doing this promise prayer. And then you already sort of also state your wish. So you say, if I complete this promise prayer, then may I be granted this wish. And you basically wish to the Buddha of your, I don't know, heartfelt wishes and desires and help that you need. And my mom has always said to us, because we, learn these sort of things and techniques and prayers like at an early age. She, I think, also wanted us to make sure that we weren't just focused on prayers alone. So she would always say to us that, there are, in terms of, manifesting what you want in life, there are sort of three things that you need. Number one, for us, because we are Buddhists and we do a lot of praying, so she tells us, you need to pray. So we pray. The second one that you need is the mindset that you are going to achieve, or that you have already achieved, the wish that you asked for in that promised prayer. So it's that mindset that you already have it. So even as soon as you pray for it, that you already have it, sort of almost live and almost believe as though that wish, whatever it is already yours. And the third one that she always says, which is very sort of grounded and down to earth, is the fact that we put our own efforts towards the wish, the dream, the goal that we have. So that means, for example, for me, turning up most days regularly to my easel to paint, to do my art program on a regular basis and follow the lessons and follow the assignments. That is sort of an example of putting our efforts in. If it's like a fitness goal, making sure that you are going out for walks regularly, or you are turning up to the gym regularly, that sort of thing. So she always said that if you pray without putting your own effort in, that is unlikely to work. If you pray, you put the effort in, but you also don't change your mindset, then obviously, there is one thing out of the three ingredients that's missing. So obviously we're human. So I think for me, especially sort of even reflecting on these very things with you now, I feel like I also could do better at believing that my dream, my wishes, my goals are already like with me, already like, that I already have it, that it's already happened. There's so much information, especially these days, to do with goal setting and resolutions and all that kind of stuff out there on YouTube, on podcasts, everywhere, really. And I think that it can also get very overwhelming sometimes, especially sort of coming into, sort of creating my own path, but coming at it as an artist who, I wasn't really even organized at all in the beginning. I didn't know how to sort of, you know, align my days and weeks and months in accordance to what I actually wanted in life and what I actually wanted to achieve. And as soon as sort of I set my path out on this dream of having my own art studio, it sort of signaled to me that all of a sudden, like, I had to really become more organized and also be more purposeful towards the direction that I was heading, because naturally there are so many things that you can do, especially in a privileged world that we live in, especially if you live in the West. Like, we are so much more privileged than the average person, who is trying to get by in a developing country. And I have seen that even going back to my country in Myanmar, where there is so much disparity between the rich and the poor. And sometimes the poverty is so apparent that it really makes me realize how privileged I am. And if you are watching this video, you might be coming from a similar background as me, where, we have grown up with some sort of privileges, like having good education, being able to choose what we want to do as a job, and all that kind of stuff, right? And if that's the case, then it's most likely that you are going to have tons of options. And that was what I found to be like, even sort of going into this and stating that I want to set up my own art studio business. There are so many elements to that, right? Like, where do I start? Hence why this past year in 2025, I decided to go back into education and start an art program because I really didn't have a full roadmap of where I wanted to go. And for me, like, I knew that I needed to improve on my painting skills and sketching skills and get my hand practiced again. But I also knew that I also needed some time to consider like what my options were. What is it in this statement in itself is going to direct where my focus and my time and attention is going to be. And I think that's the key thing here in terms of setting goals and setting resolutions is thinking about, where is your time and where is your attention going to be? Because I really do believe that where your attention goes, your energy flows, and also where your energy is flowing in that area, that is where you're going to see like practical, visible, measurable changes in. I've experienced that this year with the art program because when I started towards the beginning of the year in 2025 in March, I started my art program and I barely could sketch anything. And then I started to be able to sketch, people. And that was something I really wanted to improve on because I had no idea how to bring depth and dimension to a face. I had no idea how to draw eyes. Noses seem so intimidating. They're like this is so like there's so many bumps everywhere in a nose. It's like, how do you actually start to break it down? And even the mouth, how do I draw a mouth without it looking very like cartoony? But step by step, like I just followed the lessons and I saw improvements because my attention was there. Like I really wanted to improve and I really wanted to draw women. So my attention was there. And then my energy was there and I saw visible practical changes in that area. So it's the same thing, right? Like out of all the options, out of all the choices that you could have in your life at the moment, what is it that you truly want to focus on? What is making your heart sing and excited? There might be a bit of fear also because no sort of, I think, genuine, heartfelt desire comes without fear and discomfort. Like I genuinely feel like my dream makes me feel so scared because I have skills but also deficiencies in so many ways that also makes me uncomfortable. But I think that is sometimes also a signal that we might be heading in the right direction. Because when it comes to the heart, I really believe that the heart isn't logical. Our brain is logical. So if we say, for example, take my example, right? I want to fulfill my dream of becoming an artist, a professional artist. I want to have my own art studio business. My logical brain is basically saying, you know, is that even possible? Are you going to be able to do it? It might take very long. You don't even have enough social skills to be out there and sharing, about your art so confidently. Like, how can you sort of become proficient in this? There is this notion of being a poor struggling artist. Like my brain automatically goes to, gosh, like if I want to be an artist, am I going to be poor and struggling for the rest of my life? That's our brains talking, right? Whereas the heart, like it just knows that I'm here to create. I'm here to share with my hands. Like, I'm here to create paintings with my hands, different things. I want to make different things with my hands. I want to share things with my voice. I want to express with my voice. I want to express with my whole body when I'm painting. Like, that's so innocent and so straightforward when it comes to the heart. And there will be fears and discomfort, but if you really truly listen to your heart, I really think that the ultimate goal, ultimate vision, ultimate sort of, dream that you have for yourself is going to be exciting and scary, and it's going to also ask you to sacrifice something. And that is another aspect to sort of, thinking about this so many options that we have. What is that, one or two things that we really, really want to put our attention and energy and effort into? And if ultimately I think we're choosing something, we will ultimately end up letting go of something else. And that might happen naturally because you're sort of pushing forward towards what you want. But sometimes you might have to sort of give up something else. Everyone's story is going to be different, but I think sort of talking about this in the context of New Year and setting resolutions and goals, I think what I'm getting down to basically is, you know, it's fine to have like lots of goals and lots of like things you want to do in life, but also I think it's also good to sort of like tune into yourself and be like, okay, I have so many ideas, I've got so many things, but what is my heart telling me? Like, what is that thing that is really making my heart sing? Because I think like that way of like tuning into ourselves will ultimately like I think guide us forward for the rest of the year and also many, many years to come too. It's basically milk at this point. I've got so much matcha at the bottom of the drink. I really need to get that electric whisk pretty soon. So I'm going to refer to some notes on my phone at this point because the first point that I mentioned about, this ultimate sort of your ultimate sort of desire, your ultimate sort of dream. And look, you don't have to have everything figured out seriously because I'm sat here in front of you after 5 years plus, probably. I think this sort of desire to paint came to me around like 2021. So I'm sat here in front of you after 4 or 5 years of fumbling my way through listening to other people's podcasts, listening to other artists, trying out different things myself, and finding clarity along the way. Your vision can change. I think the most important thing that I would sort of share with you that has helped me is to stay true to yourself and to tune into what your heart is telling you. And if you don't know yet what exactly that is, I think that's also fine. I think through sort of trying anyway, in attempting to set a vision, attempting to set goals, or attempting to sort of generally head in the direction of where you think you might want to be heading is a good thing, surely. So I basically had to get help from our good friend ChatGPT because right now I don't have, I would say, like, like a business consultant or someone that a coach that I'm sort of consulting with. And I have had one in the past, but it's really been more like she was like a mentor figure who helped me through sort of like a personal challenging moment in my life. And she was there to remind me of my dream, but she wasn't there to basically like show me the ropes of, practical how to's and whatnot. A few weeks ago, I was thinking about all this for myself, like setting goals and resolutions and, all of this now that the new year is coming. And last year, I wrote very practical, goal orientated statements. Statements like, I want to put out like 52 videos because there were 52 weeks in a year. So I wrote, I want to put out 52 videos in 2025. Spoiler alert, that didn't happen. I think I reached just over half, which is fine. It was a good attempt. And also I learned a lot. But I also had other goals like I want to reach like, I don't know, like 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And obviously we're not there yet, but this community is growing week by week, month by month, and I'm really grateful actually for this sort of slow and steady growth because that is also shaping my own resilience and the way I manage my mind too. Anyway, that was a little side topic, but these were the sort of goals that I set. But now that I'm sort of into sort of having lived out the first year of, 2025, the first year of going full time on trying to fulfill my creative dream, my artistic dream, I had more information of what I did well, what I didn't do well, what things were useful for me. So the first ever thing that I actually did, which I want to share with you because it might be helpful for you too, is almost like an audit. I wrote things down in two ways. Like the first way I did it was I literally wrote out like, okay, I had goals that were to do with statistics, right? Like 52 videos or 4,000 subscribers, that sort of thing. Where am I at now? So I literally wrote out, like I made, let's say, like 26 videos, long form 26 videos. I did, I don't know, 30 short videos, 30 YouTube shorts. And I have, I don't know, like 150 subscribers. I wrote that down. So I wrote down everything that I could see. I wrote, I don't know, 10 newsletters. I wrote down all of those in stats. I completed 12 weeks worth of art lessons. I made 20 sketches and I did 30 paintings, very visible, very clear sort of numbers. And that's how I started out with. And then I also did an audit of sort of my mindset, sort of, I sort of reflected on on the times when my mind has been so overwhelmingly doubtful and resistant and how that has impacted me. Or I reflected about how I allowed more time to rest and how that has positively also impacted me. How when I went to travel for even like a short weekend, how that has refreshed my mind and I came back feeling even more inspired. This sort of like little nuances that maybe are not quantifiable, but they're more like qualitative experiences. So I did like an audit. So if you would like, you can do a similar thing. There are things that I did, like, I learned how to color grade, or I learned how to film in certain ways. Your statistic goal might be very like clear, like, 52 videos or something like that. But your sort of qualitative things, like the things that you learned, no matter if you achieve that statistic goal or not, I promise you, like, you would have learned so much in even just attempting that goal itself because that's how I feel like. I might not have achieved that statistic goal, but I have learned so much in terms of, skill building this year that I, in the beginning of last year, would have been and was genuinely really confused about. I didn't know how to film properly. I didn't know how to edit properly. I didn't have my own editing flow. Like, those were the things actually that really mattered to me. But at the same time, when I became too fixated on the stats, I was doubtful and I was very resistant and I wobbled in my confidence. So, like, you get the idea. Like, so I sort of, by reflecting on this, I sort of have a very clear idea of my own mindset and also sort of where I want to improve on and what I want to do more of, like the good things I've done. So the more I think that you do this sort of reflection and honest sort of like audit, I think the more you're, I think, even like in touch with yourself, because that's one thing that requires of us, especially when we set out on our own like professional path, no matter what career you're in. I think including even, I'm going to say, an artistic path, like, there is a level of professional sort of like competence that we have for ourselves. And in order to feel like we are professionally competent, it is important, I think, to sort of set these standards and do these sort of activities like reflection and auditing, because if we don't do it, then who's going to do it? When I was in my old job, once a year, there would be like, a yearly review or a quarterly review where I sat down with my bosses, my colleagues, and we would go through like, like what we did well, what we want to focus on, that sort of thing. But it was always like prompted by someone else. And now, sort of going into, this whole venture by myself, I've sort of had to develop the practice to do that for me, not for anyone else, but really like for me, because I said that this is my dream and this is what my heart is singing and dancing to me. So if that's the case, then what can I do? What kind of effort do I need to put in to make sure that this little heart of mine can, you know, um, feel like it's lived out its sort of entire expression? So this whole point was just to say, don't be afraid of being a little bit more analytical, especially if you come from a more like creative sort of mind, because I certainly was very resistant to doing these sort of things like 3, 4 years ago. I was like, psh, like, what are you talking about? Like, setting goals, like, that sounds boring. Auditing, like, trying to see myself more objectively, like, like, that just doesn't sound like it's creative. But actually, I've learned to feel a little bit more in tune with all of that stuff because I want to do it for myself. With each year that passes, I feel more and more like I don't want to do it for anybody else. I want to do it for myself. I want to do it for the heart that sings to me. That's my poetic way of putting it. But so that's the audit, right? The auditing. Done. Okay. So when I talk about, I think, what is your heart singing to you, or what is your ultimate dream, or what is it that you are being led towards, I would say that is close to sort of defining it as like a vision, your North Star, if you will, and that North Star for me doesn't have a time limit. That's my personal opinion, because no one knows really truly. We can set a time for ourselves, but I don't know if we are fully in control of when that North Star will be sort of seen to its full fruition. And when it does, it might even look different from what we envisioned. It might even be bigger and better than we envisioned. It might also have the same essence but look different. So I hope you see where I'm going here. But for me, like, the vision doesn't really change. So ChatGPT actually sort of describes it also as like the lighthouse, and I thought that was a very beautiful way of describing it. So for me, like I'll give you a couple of examples for what is like under my vision at the moment. So it's things like, I want to be a distinctive painter with a recognizable style. I want to be a grounded, strong, resilient, creative professional. I want to be the it artist woman who inspires through her art and her presence. So these are the few examples of my vision. So this is the lighthouse, if you will. And then we move on to what is called long-term goals. So here's the thing, right? This is why I had to consult ChatGPT, because what I was really confused about was I knew what I needed to do on a weekly basis, but I couldn't quite 100% understand how that tied back into my bigger sort of like desire, my bigger dream. And I didn't know where these sort of day to day, week to week sort of objectives fit when it came to sort of thinking about the year in like a quarterly perspective. So that was when I thought, in the conversation that I had with ChatGPT, like it broke it down very clearly for me. So it said, after the vision, this sort of like lighthouse, this dream, this thing that your heart is pulling towards, after that, the next sort of, narrowing of that pyramid is the long-term goals. So that it described as 6 to 18 months. So that means half a year to 1.5 years. So I guess we could say it's like between half a year to 1 to 2 years. And I think it could even stretch to 3 years, to be honest, depending on what it is, right? So for me, if you think about my vision, being a distinctive painter with a recognizable style, one of my long-term goals for art is completing my art program. So it's long-term because for me, like I didn't finish it this year, and it's going to go into next year, and I think it's going to go into probably the middle part of next year, because after learning different techniques of oil painting and mixed media, it's then going to go on to things like branding and time management and all that sort of practical stuff too. So it's going to take some time for me to complete the art program. Hence, it came into the long-term goals. So let's pick the other example, the other part of my vision, which was the it artist woman who inspires through her art and her presence. So what does that mean exactly when it comes to sort of long-term goals? So that for me means that I will be working a lot on myself, and I will be focusing on developing my voice. So a part of this translated to a long-term goal might be develop my narrative and spoken word voice on camera, because for me, like using my voice is really important to me. Like using my voice to express in general is really a creative thing for me. When I'm narrating the videos, when I'm doing spoken word poetry, when I'm even coming on here to speak, like for me, like voice is such a creative way to express ourselves, and I want to use it to the fullest capacity that I can. So developing my spoken word voice, developing this narrative voice can only benefit that overall vision. And let me tell you that, these long-term goals are not are logical, but it's also driven by passion. I've sort of made sure that I focus on the things that I'm good at and can improve on my strength. And I've also made sure that I focus on aspects of what I'm excited to work with. And, working with my narrative voice is definitely one of them. And there are, like business and brand things that I have no idea about. If you've noticed, I've been slowly trying to be more like presentational, I don't know, or cohesive when it comes to like branding around this Teesside Thursday. I try to make a little logo, and I've tried to make sure, like recently I was playing around with like thumbnails and stuff. Like I still don't know if it is ultimately sort of the final thing, but I like that, I'm attempting. I like that I'm sort of, building that muscle to kind of think about fonts and to think about where I'm putting texts and images and, how to make it more fun, even that's fitted to the energy of this whole podcast. Like, so, like business and branding is definitely something that I need to and want to improve on. But in that timeline of 6 to 18 months, for me, like that's actually a little bit further down the line. It might be at the end of 2026, or it might be beginning of 2027. I definitely know that I want to touch on learning about it from someone in 2026. But I don't know if it will come to a full sort of, I wouldn't say like fruition, but more like, like I feel like I have competence in that area. I really don't feel like it at the moment. I can say that I have, competence now in like my painting and drawing skills to the point where I kind of know how I best express myself and how to push that forward. But with business and branding, not really, not yet. So, like that's sort of like where I'm going at here. So, I definitely have long term goals that are related to business and branding. Like, for example, building a brand identity. So, what does that mean? Like, I haven't even reflected on that really. I think so much of what I've done so far has just been led from like the heart, like, my passion, my interest. And the more I do it, to be honest with you, the more I realize that if you are focused on what you are also a good at, what you're interested in, the more that also becomes like what you're known for. So we should all sort of focus on that more. So yeah, that's my basic understanding of, branding so far. It's not down to a total science. It's literally more like an intuitive thing at the moment. But anyway, so I hope you get my point, right? Like if I am completing my art program in 2026, like middle of 2026 next year, branding might be something that I touch on next year, but I have more competence and feel more confident, because that's the thing for me. Like it's not about like passing a test. It's more like I want to feel confident in that area. So it might not be something that happens fully next year, but it might be in 2027. That's when I start to be able to even like, for myself, like be able to realize that the time that I'm spending now, most of it can go towards doing paintings and drawings and making these videos and, continuing to write and paint and creatively express myself, because I know that the whole business and branding thing is going to come later. Then it doesn't, for me, when I think about these things in that sort of like time scale, in these sort of like long-term goals, it doesn't feel as overwhelming, because that's how it used to feel, like freaking overwhelming. Like really, I knew that I had this dream. I knew that I had so many things to do. I just didn't know where to focus my time and attention and effort and energy. But now that I do, I just feel so much better for it. At least attempting to do things in a more sort of clearer way has been really, really beneficial for me. Now that you sort of might have an idea on what your 6 months to 1 or 2 years of, long-term goals are, how does that then translate to your short-term goals? because that's what I was actually most clear about. I can be also like very like right brain in terms of like thinking about, okay, like what do I need to do today? What do I need to do this week? And then I'm good at sort of writing down what I need to do and sort of doing them. To the most part, I have my downfalls definitely as well. But that's also like one of my strengths. So because of that, like I knew that already, but for me, I needed to tie those day to day, week to week things to what that meant for me for my long term goals. I needed to literally like write out my long term goals again using the help of ChatGPT, because I was doing the day to day stuff, but I wasn't sure because I didn't sit down to reflect enough on why I was doing what I was doing. So I needed to see the forest from a top down perspective. I was seeing the individual trees too much. So for you, it might be the opposite. It might be that you're very clear of your vision, what makes your heart sing. You're very clear of what your long-term goals are, like what you want to focus on for the next 1 to 2 years. But you might not be clear on what you need to do in your month to month, week to week, day to day life. So that's what your short-term goals are. They're basically monthly or 4 to 12 weeks. I always find it very clear to break it down to the months first before I jump into my weeks. So what I normally do is, for the things that I'm doing which are based on the long-term goals, I have an art program that I'm following where there are videos every week, assignments every week. So that sort of dictates how many paintings I want to and need to finish in a month or 2 months or 3 months. For me, I'm, publishing content online. So I'm also dictated by how many videos I want to put out on a month-to-month basis. So for me, like I would like to put out videos once a week. The other layer to this is, this is very professional here, right? Because I'm sort of in that sort of professional mindset. Let's not forget your personal life. Like our personal lives play a huge role in our well-being. So if you think about on a month-to-month basis, say in the next month, for example, do you have any events that are coming up? Do you have any travel trips that are coming up? Are you going away somewhere to see family? Are you wanting to make like a solo trip somewhere? Do you want to put that into your calendar? Do you want to have a weekend where you're literally doing nothing because you literally just want to switch off and veg out on the couch? That's possible. We just, I think, have to factor it in. And that's when, for me, like thinking about it on a more month to month basis becomes really helpful, because I have learned that if I focus too much on my week to week, especially professionally, especially when I'm now doing this like full time, I need to make sure that I have my downtime, because if I don't, then I go a bit crazy. Like I overwork, and that's just my personality. So for me, it's not helpful if I do that. So I start thinking, for example, in 2 months, within, say January and February, I want to publish 8 videos, 4 long form content and 4 short form content, something like that. Just an example. I want to do 4 finished paintings in the next 2 months, January and February. So then that then starts to actually like dictate my week to week. Because if I have to get a video out by once a week, then I know what weeks I need to film and what weeks I need to edit. But if I'm going away somewhere, then I need to maybe film an extra video or put more time into editing a few more videos than I normally would. If I'm going away somewhere, then I definitely need to focus on more than the next couple of videos. So you can sort of start to see how very practical it gets when you start thinking about the week to week stuff. And it can be translated to also, your fitness goal. So for example, like I don't have it written down, but for me, like one of my main sort of feeling, like I literally feel in my heart desire that I just want to be consistent in being in the gym next year, and not letting my sort of impatient mindset lead me to over pushing myself to the point where my body is having to compensate for maybe some setbacks, maybe some minor injuries. Like, I really want to make sure that I'm literally going in a slow and steady pace, because I just know that being able to work out in the mornings 4 to 5 times a week is just really helpful for my mental and physical health. And also for my creative life, I'm more grounded. I have more physical energy. For me, like, that is, I guess, like my long-term goal, because that's essentially what I want to focus on for the next 6 months, to the next year, for the next 2 years. And the practical sort of short-term goal for me, when it comes down to thinking about it in a month-to-month basis, is I'm following a program, and this program lasts for 12 weeks. So I already know what I'm doing in my week-to-week, day-to-day, when I turn up at the gym, because I have a program. So I just need to follow that program. But in terms of my mindset, my long-term goal as a mindset is having a slow and steady approach. That means in my short-term goal, week-to-week sessions, I want to focus more on form, having the correct form, feeling the right muscles, rather than pushing up the weight every single session. So I hope you sort of get my explanation. I hope this is clear to you. So yeah, that's sort of how I have been able to reflect on my New Year's sort of goals, and also reflect on the past year. And this was something that I did over the course of, a month or a month and a half. It wasn't something for me personally where I just sat down and started to sort of, like, write everything down, because for me, like, I take a lot of time to reflect. I take a lot of time to think about things. So because of that, I let myself brew over, like, like my emotions and my feelings and stuff like that, before I sort of jump down into like writing things down concretely. But whatever you do, there's no right or wrong approach. I just hope that sharing my method, sharing my current process, at least, as someone who's coming from a creative artist profession, maybe coming from a similar background as you, or having the similar or same, dream and desires as you. Like, I hope, if that's where you're coming from too, I hope that sharing my own thought process helps you in some way. And the last thing that I want to touch on, which was also something that I needed ChatGPT's help on, something that I wasn't clear about in the beginning, was to do with skill upgrades, improving our skills, leveling up. Because I don't know about you, but I always have this mindset where, I'm always thinking about what I want to improve on, what I want to get better at. And definitely, I think, need to also appreciate how far I've come, because I really don't do that enough. But my default is always sort of, I'm seeing always sort of the minute details of where I want to focus on upgrading my skill. So for example, when I started to make these videos, these art vlogs in the beginning of 2025, I really wanted to try out color grading, because I saw videos where there were like these crisp colors, and it was just so aesthetic. So I was like, I really want to learn how to do that. Something might come out of it, something might not, but I just really want to try it, right? So like, there are like things like that you'll have that might fit into your vision or goal, or it might not. It doesn't matter personally for me. It's just that I think that can be put into our bucket of skill improvement, skill upgrades. And I think when it comes to skill upgrades, this is the sort of thing that I sort of define as something that you're currently not 100% good or confident at the moment, where you might need to learn from someone else or watch a bunch of videos and do some self-education. But it's definitely achievable. But it's just going to take a little bit of time, maybe extra time, out of whatever you are already doing to sort of improve that skill. So for me, for example, in my art skills that I want to upgrade on, I want to actually like really learn, how to put more focus on the light and the dark contrast. So what I mean is I want to observe more like where the sun might be like hitting a face or a painting, and what that means for when I distribute colors, like the values, the light and the dark on a painting. Like, what does that mean technically, how to do it? I want to build a strong color palette that feels like me. Sounds very vague, but it's like an intuitive thing. But that's also something I want to focus on. So then what does that mean, right? Like when I translate it to these like long-term and short-term goals, for me, like these are the sort of things that I want to put a little bit more sort of emphasis on, but I'm going to do them in a sort of bit by bit process. So what I mean by that is I've said to myself, every single time I do a painting, I'm just going to think a little bit about light and dark areas of a painting, and I'm just going to try to portray that a little bit more. If I feel like I see an artist who's doing it really well, then I want to study it. So I might take maybe 15 minutes out of a painting session just to go on their Instagram or YouTube page or their website and just to like study a little bit about what they might have done. It's like these little skill upgrades, little time commitments that you might not think is helpful in the beginning, but it all really adds up. Like I promise you, these little bits add up, because I've actually done that a lot with video making and editing skills this year. Like I didn't know how to do certain things like effects on videos. So I took maybe like in some editing sessions, usually it's been prompted by a problem that I had. So I wanted to transition from a scene to scene, but I didn't know how to put like a transition on. So I would just take a little bit of time in that editing session to look it up, and I would get the answer. I would try it out. If it worked, amazing. Now I have a new skill. So then I would implement it again in the next video that I did. And so it went. So then I realized now, like I now have like this idea of like what sort of transitions I like to use, what sort of music that I want to use, because I've experimented. So I think that skill upgrades have a lot to do with slow and steady little opportunities of time given for that skill to improve bit by bit. But I think another part of skill upgrades is also being open to experimentation. Maybe that'll be a subtopic for another Teaside Thursday episode, but definitely it's important to be open to experiment, be open to make a mess, so that we actually finally, have a better sense of what we do like and what we don't like. So I think that definitely will be a different Teaside Thursday episode, most likely. But yeah, wow, let me have a drink. Before I started this Teaside Thursday episode, I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to explain, for me, like such a big topic of visioning and goal setting to you at all. But I think I did okay. You can be the judge of that. Let me know in the comments below what you found helpful, if it helped you at all, if there are certain things that you want clarity on, or if you yourself have like, a tip that you could share with the rest of us on resolutions, visioning, goal setting. That would be amazing because I feel like I'm still learning every single month. And I think this is going to be a learning of a lifetime. And this probably isn't going to be the only sort of goal setting video that I do, because who knows, like my process might change in a few years' time. But I hope this helped. I'm going to end it here. Happy New Year, and really like get some vibes from the Teesside Thursday episodes and grab a hot drink, grab a notebook, or even I would say like go for a walk outside first. No headphones, no music, no podcasts, no nothing. Just go for a walk and see what comes up like in your body, in your heart, in your mind. And I think that is the best starting point for any sort of visioning and goal setting that you might do. For me, like my best things have come from giving space to things. So, have fun with it, be relaxed about it, and trust that the answers will come up, because honestly, they do. Don't be discouraged if you are confused. Don't be discouraged if you feel like you're not up to the level of understanding that you want to have in this topic or any other area of your life. Just like we started off the podcast talking about this whole concept of try again, like remember that we can always try again. So I'm trying to definitely give that grace for myself, and I hope you can do the same for yourself as well. That's my wish for you for 2026. Okay, I'm gonna end it here and stop rambling. Thank you for joining another episode of Teesside Thursday, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye. Running up stones on the edge of the bank. Rally the troops for another refrain. I sing this softly to myself. I sing this softly